welcome back to another episode of Double Take with the Safety Bros. I'm Alex here with my brother John, not Jonathan, Johnny boy. John, what's up, brother?
What's going on, man? We got about 5 weeks left until the season comes back, so there's gonna be a lot of games to watch. I know everyone's waiting for some real sports. Obviously, a lot's going on. Florida right now, is right now about
spiking with those numbers.
It's about to become the epicenter in the
Hate to see
country.
that.
So that's definitely not looking good for the NBA and their comeback plans. But
In Orlando.
we're not going to talk about any of that today because today we're going to talk more so about a long discussion that always goes on with the NBA, and that is who our top 10 players are going to be. That's what we're going to get into today.
So, as John just said, there's no basketball being played. But we, in the next few weeks, it's about roughly 5 weeks before the NBA starts, we're going to tackle some of these random NBA discussions that you see, on Twitter or just on these sports talk shows. And they're a lot of fun. We're going to do some deep dives on specific players in the coming weeks, talk about their careers. We are going to do an episode where we discuss who and which are the greatest NBA teams of all time. But like John said, today we're going to do our top 10 players of all time.
Right.
And kind of the way it's broken down, we already did that episode with the LeBron versus Jordan argument, who obviously are 1 and 2 in no really order. I guess we'll discuss the order in a minute. But the way it's kind of broken down is into different tiers. Because while we have the same general list of the top 10 players, there are a few differences in our lists with maybe we have one guy over another, and one guy one spot below, or whatever the case may be. So let's start off and let's just talk about those first 2 spots. John, who do you have as your number 1 best player of all time?
All right, so right now, my number 1 is Michael Jordan, and he's still 1. Obviously, we did an episode about The Last Dance, and we did an MJ and LeBron
a lot
episode.
of MJ coverage.
Right, on Double Take. But just really quickly, for all those geezers and old people that are listening right now that are cheering that, I'm 20 years old, I never watched Michael Jordan, yet I still picked him as my number 1. First I wanted to say, half my 6 players on my list I never watched, so I'm just gonna quickly spoil the only people that I watched that are in my top 10.
Are you really gonna spoil?
No, just I'll say it. LeBron, Duncan, Kobe, and Shaq. I have those 4 guys top 10. The other 6 guys I haven't put in my top 10, or I have not seen. I'm sorry, I never watched. So everything that we know about these other players that are going to be on our top 10 list is from things we've read, or maybe a book about basketball we've read, or documentaries. I think the 30 for 30s are great, and there's some great one. The Lakers Celtics one, the Bad Boy Pistons one. Obviously, there was just the Last Dance one on MJ. So my perception is skewed of these guys, and that's obviously why.
Tell us why you have Jordan number 1.
Well, I was gonna say that's obviously why LeBron's number 2, and why also I believe that by the end of LeBron James's career, I believe that he will surpass Jordan. The reason right now I have Jordan number 1 is because I think that there's maybe it's an over celebration to an extent. Or not even over celebration.
Are you talking about the last different?
I'm saying when a player retires, that comes. So we know that when LeBron James retires, looking back on his career, everyone is gonna even just before we did this episode, Alex. I looked at basketball stats and I was just oh my gosh, it's unreal that LeBron James is in his 17th season right now, and he just averaged 32, 8, and 8 against on those back-to-back games against, or it was on the weekend against the Bucks and the Clippers, the 2 best teams, and they beat both those teams. So LeBron James somehow is still in his prime. It's been a 16-year prime, and so what I'm saying is that when LeBron retires, and look, he's still got a shot to win a ring this season, which I would say is likely, and I would put a large wager of money on it, just because of what I know he's capable of doing in the playoffs, and the fact that I believe that he will be there in the playoffs. So he can win a ring this year. Who knows? Maybe they repeat. Maybe they don't. Maybe Anthony Davis takes a driver's seat and LeBron becomes
that's
even
not happening.
If
they win, LeBron's
getting
getting.
No, this season, 2020. You're right.
Yeah.
But 2021, who knows? We know. We saw it with Brady. At some point, LeBron is gonna drop off. Yeah. He's gonna slow down. But in my opinion, what he's done already, he has the longevity of Kareem, right? Kareem played 20 seasons, I think. all-time scoring leader. LeBron's gonna catch those records, and he's gonna become like top 5 in assists as well. And it's he won't get there in rebounds because obviously he's not 7 feet tall. His numbers and just the totality of his career, like who knows, maybe he plays 25 seasons, maybe he plays them, or maybe he won't. Maybe he'll drop off, and the second he becomes sixth man material, he won't want to play anymore. But what I'm saying is that I think that LeBron James still has got 5 years left, let's say, and he's in year 17 right now.
We're not talking
and
about...
I believe that he will get there.
It wasn't what do you think is going to happen. It's why do you have Jordan ahead of LeBron right now?
Right, and right now, like I said, it's because... To me, he is not there yet. He's not. Okay. He's knocking on the door. It's if you want to call it 1A, 1B, like for me, LeBron is solidified number 2. No one can dispute that. But like I said, when someone retires, we kind of elevate them a little more. And I know that when LeBron retires, the conversation is going to be more in his favor.
When people retire, they get elevated. I think with LeBron, what we've seen, and we have in the past, even let's call it 3 to 5 years, more people call LeBron the GOAT than they were previously. Obviously, a lot of people think it's Michael Jordan, which is fair.
It's also a generational thing. You can't deny.
Yeah, it's generational. But what I'm gonna say is that I think the fact that LeBron is kind of always been chasing that shadow or that ghost of Jordan has made people have over scrutinized LeBron. Not to say Jordan was never scrutinized the same way, but over scrutinize LeBron, and any time he falls short, it's, Jordan would have done this, Jordan would have done that. And so I think because of that, most people have, pushed LeBron down to number 2, where I think he's actually number 1, and I'm very, very open to the Jordan argument for number 1. I could even myself give you the argument as why he should be over LeBron, but I believe that LeBron is better than Jordan, and a lot of it, I think, too, is I pick LeBron because I just think of his versatility and the way he can impact a basketball game, and I think it's more than Jordan can. He can do what Jordan does, but then I think he has other facets of his game that Jordan did not have. And part of it is even just because of his physical skill set, which is that's through no fault of Jordan. Like, LeBron is bigger, and therefore he's more versatile, even defensively. And people say, well, Jordan has... I think 9 all-defensive teams. He has
LeBron
a defensive player of the year.
Right now.
LeBron isn't on that level defensively. But when LeBron really wants to turn it on, he has it. He's just where Jordan is.
Right.
So,
Yeah, one thing I'll say, though, is... So, you say you got Jordan, too. In my opinion, and this is something I'm going to talk about in this list, and that's part of my criteria, is that I feel like when there's a point when you say, what could this player have done? Like, what else could Jordan have done? So for you to really not put him at... it has to be a player that has really has done unthinkable things. And for me, that's what I think LeBron will do by the end of his career.
I already think he has, though.
No. For me, it's when LeBron will surpass Kareem for the all-time scoring, when he'll become top 3 in assists, when we're going to look back at his career and say, wow, he won a ring and an MVP with 3 different teams, right? So which is what I think. Maybe he won't win an MVP with the Lakers, or maybe he will never win a ring with the Lakers. I think that he's got a shot at winning an MVP. Maybe it's small, but I believe I would put money down that he will win a ring with the Lakers. So I think looking back at that, to me, it'll be LeBron will have to really... for someone to be better than Michael Jordan, it has to be they did what Jordan did, except for longer. And that's what I think LeBron will do. But when you look at Jordan's career, what could Jordan say, well, I could have done this better? Isn't that he left and played baseball?
It's not that Jordan... No, it's not that... Well, I mean, maybe. But I could argue that baseball would have hurt his career. But whatever, that's neither here nor there.
That's what I'm saying.
With LeBron,
it's
not that, Jordan didn't do this. It's that LeBron did this.
Right, that's what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is right now,
LeBron to me has already done enough for me to say I believe he's better than Jordan. Right. And part of it does... if you want to just look at resume, okay, Jordan has 3 more rings. He has 1 more MVP. He has 1 more defensive player. If you look at just purely that, then it's okay, well, it's Jordan. But if you go look at the totality, look at the context, I believe LeBron has... What he has done has been more impressive to me.
Okay, but so I'll say this.
We can talk about this all day. Do you want to... So last
we
thing
could... my last thing that I'll say is that I think right now you're proving the generational gap. I remember some of
I watched The Last Dance.
Okay,
what else do you want me to do?
Well, I'll just give an example. Here's 2 examples. One, I just showed my friend Julius, shout out Julius, this list, and he said, "Oh, I don't like Jordan at 1." Generational thing. He's our age. Another thing was our friends were I forget, they were texting one night, and we were like, oh, yo, I'm watching The Last Dance, and they're like, oh, well, maybe I'd watch it if it was about LeBron. You know, like, that's just how our generation thinks. So, Alex, I think if you were truly being objective, and that's fine, you know, LeBron won you 2 rings. If you're being 100% objective.
Really, bro? You're really going to say that?
Right now, Jordan has to be one. Because LeBron's career's not finished yet. I do think he'll get there, but
you know what? Maybe we have to have another episode discussing the 1 and 2.
We will after
do more of a deep dive into LeBron.
Right, after LeBron wins the ring this year, we can.
In any case, LeBron and Jordan are 1A and 1B, if you will, and for both of us, or 1 and 2.
1 and 2.
Whatever it is. But the next 2 guys, we also disagree about, but we both agree that it's these 2 guys that are 3 and 4 in whatever order.
Right. So,
John, do you want to start with your case?
So my number 3 right now, it is tough, like you said, these 3 and 4, but I do think that I feel very strongly about this top 4. So right now mine is MJ, LeBron, Bill Russell, and then Kareem. So
and I obviously have LeBron, Jordan, and then I actually have Kareem at 3 and Russell at 4. So John, give me.
So in my opinion, I don't know how you can cut it any other way than those 4 guys. I would love to hear those arguments for I guess Magic or Bird or Kobe or Shaq.
Probably Magic might have the best case.
Yeah,
maybe
but
even Wilt actually. But
No, I don't.
I think some people would argue Wilt. People who are older.
I'll be shocked, and I would love to hear those too. But in my opinion, those 4, that's my Rushmore, right? You got the top 4, and I don't know how. So like I said, I don't know how you don't have Russell and Kareem there, just because they're.
What's the argument for Russell over Kareem?
I would say it's interesting because it's actually like similar to what we see with the MJ versus LeBron argument, right? So
sure.
MJ, right, just winning. 6-0, that's the thing that he has over LeBron. LeBron, longevity. MJ played, he retired twice. He took 2 years off and when he played baseball and didn't play nearly as long as LeBron. Played 15 seasons. LeBron is already in season 17.
Bringing it back to
and
LeBron and Jordan.
Right. But I'm saying that Russell is similar. He's 11-1 in the finals. He played 13 seasons, though, short, just like Jordan's. Kareem, similarly, has the longevity and the awards like all-time scoring leader that Russell doesn't have. So in my opinion, the reason I just put Russell over Kareem is for a similar reason that I still have MJ over LeBron is that when we look at Russell and tell him, like, Russell believes that he was the greatest player of all time, right? And the reason we say no, like, obviously MJ was better because we look at just the eras and how different basketball was. Yeah. And there was, even though MJ didn't get 11 rings, like, we know that he surpassed Russell when he did. So for me, it's like similar in the way that I'm like, well, how can anyone tell Jordan he's not at 1 right now? It's like, I have a hard time telling Russell, after 11 rings, 5 MVPs, there wasn't a Finals MVP award then. So how many Finals MVPs would he really have? Maybe he'd have 11, maybe he'd have half of them, who knows? But to me, it's like, what can we hold against him? And I think it is close because Kareem, 6 rings.
Same with before. It's not about
MVPs.
holding. It's not about It's not what did Russell not do. It's just what Kareem did better. And so if you're just gonna look at the resume off the bat, we have Kareem has only player to have 6 MVPs, which is ridiculous.
Right.
Especially considering
Russell has one
he won his first MVP in 1971. And his last one in 1980. So you already mentioned longevity. Longevity definitely on his side. He played 20 seasons. He's the first player to win 1,000 games, and he has the most career wins ever. He has, I think it's 1,074, which beat the next guy out by.
Right.
I think the only 2 guys who have won 1,000 are Robert Parrish and Tim Duncan. Mm-hmm. All-time scoring leader, all-time win leader, as I just said. And then you go to me saying why he's over Russell is Russell, when he did that, the league was configured in a way that actually favored the number 1 team. So if you won the championship, you had the number 1 pick. So that Celtics team, obviously, that dynasty was
they were stacked, but
absolutely stacked.
Was Kareem's team not stacked?
Let me finish the argument. That team was stacked, and there were only 8 teams in the NBA at that time. So then compare 8 teams to which basically I think that means you win like either 1 or 2 playoff series, and you're already in the finals, which is kind of crazy. And whereas Kareem, in the start of his career, there were 17 teams in the NBA. By the end of his career, there were 25 teams. And one other thing, so I talked about the distance the period of time in between his first MVP and his last one. We see a similar trend with his Finals MVP. He won his first Finals MVP in 1971 Finals. He averaged 27 points, 19 rebounds,
3 assists on 61% shooting. In the 1985 finals, he averaged, which that stacked team that you mentioned, they had Magic, James Worthy, Michael Cooper, all those guys. In the 85 finals, he averaged 26 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, 61% shooting. So that's over a 14-year span. You have a guy who won the finals MVP and the championship. And he also, like I said, his MVPs was stretched out too. And he won 6 of them. So I just think you look at the whole body of work. And I haven't even mentioned this. If we talk about just purely being unstoppable and just, his legacy and what he's done to the game, the skyhook. The skyhook was unstoppable. And I think having probably I don't even think that's an argument. That's the most unstoppable move of all time. I think I'm going to give Kareem the nod over Russell, despite Russell, really.
Yeah. So
his resume is pretty.
My just quick pushback is that the era thing is always the argument. It is the only argument that'll hold Russell back, right?
Yeah.
And that's because
that's kind of my argument too.
Yeah, he started playing. His first season was like 1957, right? And he only played 13 seasons, and he won 11 of those rings. So again, like I said, how can we? Like, there's nothing he could have done more. He did absolutely everything, and is he accountable for the era he was playing in? So for me, it's like it's all relative. So, but he was playing in an era that it favored him in that way. But at the same time, there's a reason we're not talking about any of his teammates the way that we are talking about him right now.
Well,
how about this? No, Kareem has teammate that is in the top 10, right? Magic Johnson's both in our top 10s. Actually,
and people would probably
top 5,
a lot of people have John Havlicek and Bob Cousy in the top 15
20.
or top 15 or top
15,
20.
Not 15.
I can
20.
guarantee you. I think Bill Simmons has John Havlicek like 14.
Okay, and he's a Boston homer as well, so he's going to have all those Boston guys.
If you talk about people who really just dove in and studied the game.
There's a reason, but listen, he has an emotional bias the way everyone does. And the same reason that we want to have LeBron higher than MJ. Or you actually do. I don't, but I will have him one day, hopefully. But again, like I said, I just think that for Russell, and I think it's very similar. So I think what you do is you probably value that longevity more. What if Russell had played 7 more seasons and put up higher numbers?
I just think to me at a certain point, like obviously the only argument I would have for Russell over Kareem is just he has more rings and just him contributing to the culture of winning, like that means a lot. But if we're just talking about, then we have the other argument, which I don't like the fact that this is too much into my, GOAT debates, but it's like, who do I think was straight up a flat out better basketball player? I'm going to take Kareem because while Russell was, just a defensive monster and that was his strength, I think Kareem could match that somewhat on defense, but he also was the best, probably, you could argue he's the best offensive player of all time,
too. Yeah, for sure.
So I think you have more of a full game with Kareem, but let's try to move on now to the next few guys. So John and I are actually in agreement on these next 2. We have, actually maybe 3, but we'll just talk about these next 2 guys because they're paired together always. We have Magic at number 5 and Larry Bird at number 6. John, who do you want to talk about? Why don't we each pick a player and kind of make the argument for them?
Yeah, I think this is undisputed, and like it's tough thinking about like Rushmore, right? Like you can only pick 4 guys, right? So it's MJ, LeBron, Russell, Kareem. But to me, it's like when you're telling the story of basketball, these 2, like I wish they could have half of a Magic face and half of a Larry Bird face, like on one of the Rushmore heads, because you really can't tell the story of Magic without Larry and the story of Larry without Magic.
Yeah,
and I think something that paints that so well, and something that I learned a lot from, is the ESPN 30 for 30 document, the Lakers Celtics one. It was like a 3-part one. It's on ESPN Plus.
ESPN should pay us at this point. We always shout out there.
Yeah, we do. And it's a great it's just a great like movie that really it shows the whole story of both of those guys and how they first played against each other in a NCAA championship, which is, it's really unreal how then each of them ends up getting drafted to the Lakers and the Celtics,
who already had a rivalry.
They already had a rivalry, right? And just went at each other in 3 different NBA finals and for the whole decade of the 80s. So it's really impressive. Like these 2 guys together, it's an incredible story about, and you can't talk about basketball without mentioning them because the sport wasn't doing well, which is something they highlight in the film.
And these two saved it because it was so interesting. But
So
I
this
do
argument for
slightly
Magic then.
Yeah,
Magic
so
over Bird.
I do slightly have Magic higher, and it's tough because Bird, what he did, like, was so unreal. Like, 3 MVPs back to back to back. Like, we were just talking about this right before we started the pod, Alex. Like, we didn't think anyone else had done that. It turns out Wilt Chamberlain, I believe, is the only other player to do that. But to win 3 in a row, like, we've seen LeBron do some crazy. Like, LeBron won 2. And then he didn't win the middle one, and then he won 2 more. So LeBron won like 4 and 5 years,
And a lot of winning back to back's tough. Like very few guys have done that.
But 3
But then
is
three
unreal.
is like
So it's crazy. So I think it's just so close that at the end I have to cut it down to head to head and who won more titles. And again, Magic played with Kareem. So maybe if Bird plays with Kareem, we're talking about Bird this way. But again,
it's not like Bird's team was.
No, he wasn't. But he
Washington
didn't
Generals.
play with a guy that you think is the 3rd best player of all time, right? That's who Magic played with. So, so what I will say is that I have to just go to head, and I think it's Magic. There was a point where I think after one of the finals, Bird just said, "Yeah, Magic's unbelievable. He's the best player I've ever seen." So it's like they got to a point where everyone kind of knew, although it was such a close rivalry, although the Celtics beat the Lakers in the finals, I think it was 85. No, 84. 85.
The first one.
Celtics won 85.
Yeah, 84. No, 84. 84, the Celtics won. That was the first time they met.
Right.
You're
correct.
The Celtics won.
That
was your Magic choke.
Right.
Actually.
They won it in 84, and that was the year that Magic choked. But so I think it's tough, but I refer to the head-to-head. 2 Magic has 2 on Bird. Bird only had 1, and also they have the same number of MVPs, but Magic does have more rings. So and has gone to 9 finals where Bird only went to 5.
Yeah, so I agree with you there. I think you laid it out for both guys pretty well said. Magic is the best point guard of all time, which definitely means something. And I think their brand of basketball and kind of how he defined it, the Showtime Lakers, that means something too, because that was so ahead of their time. We see now the team is playing at an incredible pace, and that team was up and down the court. We can't even really. I'm sure there's guys who could talk about it way better than us. We obviously weren't watching it live.
Only the highlights.
Exactly, only the highlights. But in those documentaries, but to go for Magic, he went to 9 in his time with the Lakers. He was there for 12 seasons. He had that one season that he came back after he left for. Because he got HIV. But in his first 12 seasons, which is just basically his prime, from his rookie year, which he won the Finals MVP that season, and then to the end, he went to 9 finals and won 5 of them. And from 1980, when he was a rookie, to win that Finals MVP, and then to be
playing... And it was after Kareem was hurt, right? He played safe. He told Coach, I want to play center tonight, and they won, and they won the game because
Kareem
of it.
goes down in Game 5. I think Kareem actually put up 40, which gets forgotten just because Magic's next game he put up like a triple-double or something. But Magic plays center in Game 6, wins Finals MVP as a rookie. And then his last finals, although he didn't win, we see him going head-to-head with Michael Jordan and the Bulls. And so, that's an incredible feat. Another thing that a lot of people don't really say, and I actually, honestly, until I did more research on this, I was kind of shocked to see this. But Magic won his MVPs. I think he won 3 MVPs. He won in 87, 89, and 90. So, and they went back-to-back in 87 and 88. But that's Jordan's prime. So you're playing in a league with Larry Bird, and now Jordan is in his prime.
Like Jordan's
and you're able
season.
to get 3. You're able to get 3 MVPs during that time. I think that's incredible too, especially to see, which is kind of unfortunate that in 1990 Magic was the MVP of the league. In 91 they go to the finals, and then after that he kind of has to retire early because of HIV. Like Magic, there was actually a lot. Like even though
he could have played longer,
we both agree that he's the 5th best player of all time, and that's his resume. He really, if he played another, who knows, 5 seasons, maybe he really makes a better case to even be top 3.
And
which I think you could argue.
We can't mention that without also mentioning that Bird probably, if he didn't have back issues as well and back injuries, he probably could have gotten a few more quality seasons in as well.
For sure. And there's the whole Len Bias what if.
Right,
too,
that's a big NBA what if. Maybe that'll be on our NBA what if episode.
I would be interested to hear a better argument for Larry Bird over Magic, because I don't think I've ever heard that.
I don't know who would say that. I think it's pretty undisputed that Magic is over Bird. John, why don't you tell us who
All
the
right,
next
so
few
next
players
up,
are?
so the way we've organized it like 2-2-2, right? We had MJ and LeBron. Those are, in my opinion, the GOATs. Next, we had the Mount Rushmore, Russell and Kareem. Then next, you obviously Magic and Bird together. And then I think these next three guys I want to say are together.
Yeah.
But the one I have at the top is Tim Duncan. And then right after, and again, I think it's tough because I think you can dispute within each of these tiers, you can dispute who's where. But I'll just say who my 7, 8, 9 are. I got Duncan, Kobe, and Shaq. So I think there's arguments for each of these guys to be higher. To be 7. I don't think they could be higher than Bird or Magic. I think each of these guys has an argument that they're better than the other two. But the one what I have is Duncan, Kobe, and Shaq. Alex, what is your 7, 8, and 9?
My 7, 8, 9 is also Duncan, so I have Duncan at 7, then you said you had Kobe at 8. I actually have Shaq at 8, and then I have Kobe at number 9.
Okay.
So,
why don't you talk about Duncan first, and then
I'll
we can
give you
get
the
to
case
the
for
Kobe versus
Duncan.
Shaq.
So Duncan, I think maybe it's either 1 time or 0 time. I'm looking at the list now of amount of below 50 win seasons.
Right.
So already off the bat, this guy was just a winner. And I think it's a little bit similar to what we were saying about Bill Russell and just him creating kind of a culture similar to what Bill Russell had Red Auerbach, and who's one of the greatest coaches of all time.
And a great team around him.
Yeah, and a great team. Duncan also had
Greg
a great coach,
Popovich.
Greg Popovich, a great coach, and a great team around him. But it all, just like the Celtics dynasty starts with Russell, the Spurs dynasty starts with Duncan.
Right.
And I'm actually just in my head thinking this too. I think those two dynasties parallel very well with each other, just because of how long those teams were at the top of the hill. I mean, Duncan in the Spurs win their first title in '99, that shortened lockout '99 season, and they win their last one in 2014. And in my opinion, so that's 5 championships. They went to 6 finals. They lost that one with the Ray Allen shot, which made us very happy. But I would make the argument that Duncan was the best player on the Spurs in all of those championship seasons. So that's 5 seasons. You're the best guy on the title team. Like,
Well, what I will say,
how many guys can say that?
Yeah, he in the 07 one, like Duncan was still very much the best player. But
Which one did you say?
In the 07, the 07 title they won.
That, I think.
But
Finally.
no, he did. But it was more so that they swept the Cavs, and in a sweep, any player on that team could have stepped up. Again, Tony Parker, he was the best player that Duncan or maybe after David Robinson, but he was a great player, great sidekick, and he ended up taking more control over it as Duncan got older. But again, like you said, he was the best player on those championship teams. And I agree with you. Duncan, to me, kind of like you said, Magic's the best point guard, and that puts him as high as anyone. I think if you look at position, Duncan's the best power forward, and that definitely holds him to be as high as anyone else. And another thing that I think is that other people might underrate him because of he wasn't a big talker, and he was boring.
I mean, he wasn't very flashy.
Right, he wasn't very flashy, and I think it goes back to the LeBron and the Kareem argument of just longevity. This dude just they won a title in 07, and then it was 7 seasons later, and they won again. So like you said, Alex, he won titles 15 years apart, in 1999 in his second season, and then again in 2014. So to me, Duncan, just in the totality of his career, scoring, defense, he's got 2 MVPs, 3 finals MVPs, 5 rings, only 1 time that they lost in the finals, and they were the closest team of all time to lose. They were the closest team to winning that didn't actually win, right? Mm-hmm. Them, I guess, in the 73-9 2016 Golden State Warriors. So, to me, I think Duncan is just... I give him the edge over Kobe and Shaq.
Yeah.
But I could see why you might say, well, listen, Duncan has 5 rings, Kobe's got 5, and Duncan had a better situation for most of his career. So I could definitely see where the argument comes in. But Alex...
And then, I'm just thinking this too. Neither of us are going to make the argument for Shaq over Duncan in this spot, but I feel like there are definitely a lot of people... that would do that, and I think it comes back to kind of that flashiness of lack thereof with Duncan
and charisma, and we love Shaq.
And Shaq is just such a big personality, and he's fun, and just the way he played was way more dominating and fun to watch. Whereas Duncan was just very fundamentally sound. Yeah. But I think if you just look at their 2 careers, obviously I don't think it's much of an argument. I think it has to be Duncan, but Shaq I have at number 8.
And with Shaq, man, there's so much to talk about, but I guess it starts with you just think about guys who were flat out unguardable. And another thing that I factor into when I make my list of the greatest players of all time, obviously how great they were in their era, their playoff success, they make their teammates better. But one of the things that I factor in, and this goes perfectly for Shaq, is just, will we ever see another player like this, or have we ever seen one? And just uniqueness in general. And Shaq, there's never gonna be another Shaq. And it wasn't just his size; it was his speed, obviously, and athleticism. Especially when he came in the league early.
In Orlando, years, the Orlando years when the year they went to the finals, like that's just. I mean, for as big as he was, the way that he could move like that, and his agility,
which is why I actually love watching those young Shaq highlights, especially if you go back and watch him in college too. Is insane.
Yeah. And it's funny. I remember our lacrosse coach in high school, Chaka. He was always saying like, no, Shaq was the best. Like he was just unstoppable, right? And it's unreal to me because thinking about how dominant he was. Like looking at his career, and again, I didn't watch it like live until those Heat seasons when we were 6 years old when he won a title with the Heat.
Remember those two.
But to me, it's kind of unreal that in his career he only won one MVP. I guess he was playing in the late '90s, right? So Carl and MJ were getting those.
Yeah,
and then again in the early 2000s, it was like Duncan got a few.
Some people would argue
that
that Nash stole one of the ones that he should have had, but I mean, and that's the same. We're gonna move on to Kobe after this, but. Or I guess you can make the argument, but Kobe also, both those guys only have one MVP each, which is kind of crazy when you actually look at how long those careers were and how great they were over the span of those careers.
Right.
But so I guess let me just.
So that was your number 8.
Number 8 I have Shaq, and I have him over Kobe. And I will say I'll let you make the argument for Kobe, but I will say that to me Shaq in that three-peat. Being the guy who was the guy. Obviously, Kobe was right there with him. Especially by the last one, Kobe. There was not a huge discrepancy of talent between Shaq and Kobe. To me, Shaq going 3 for 3, and with all those MVPs, that really matters to me on his resume. And just it's because if you think about it, it's something that I think only, I guess you could say Russell's done it, but really only Michael Jordan has done. So. So that's why I have him over Kobe.
So I think it's a tough argument to have because they're both so great, and I honestly I don't think anyone can feel too strongly about one being that much higher over the other because they are both so great and very close in my opinion.
You can't go wrong.
And at first the argument is like, all right, they played together. Like we can just look at when they played together, who was the better player. And Shaq won those 3 Finals MVPs. But it got to the point where Kobe was also doing so much in those series that they were as close of a duo playing together as like
I guess probably ever.
Well, probably ever.
Curry and Durant,
I'll say, because those two are.
But even then, I mean, if you go into those finals, like Durant was definitely in the first finals, and less so in the second. Yeah. Durant was probably, you'd say, Durant had a better series.
Just having a series, yeah.
But so those two with Shaq and Kobe,
and then I guess I would say that when they kind of left, like when they split up, it's almost like, who did you think was gonna win more rings? I don't think many people would have said Kobe after they broke up.
I mean, at that point you have to factor in.
We have to get in the time machine. Yeah, we have to get in the time machine and go back to 2004 or 5 when he came to the Heat and figure it out. And listen, Shaq did get his 4th before Kobe did, obviously, and Kobe was alone for a while. Kobe wasn't playing with anyone as talented as Shaq was. Like, Shaq had Dwayne Wade, and Shaq did get that Finals MVP. I'm sorry, Dwayne Wade got the Finals MVP, so Shaq didn't get it. But Kobe winning 2 more, I think, was just, to me, is why I just put him over Shaq by a little bit. Because once they left, like I said, who did you think would win more? And again, like you said, age, right? Shaq went to a Finals before this with Orlando.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's what I was going to say, is I would look back at that and just, to me, that's another. Kobe did win those 2 without Shaq, but then Shaq's won final before. That means something too. And Shaq did overlap with MJ a little more, so
right.
I mean, I guess maybe that's not even an argument that should be said, but
yeah. And one last factor with Kobe is just like, so MJ, right? Everyone holds MJ as the GOAT. No one will ever be MJ. Like no one can ever come close. But look who really did, just copy his game and and become one of the greatest players of all time. You know, from the beginning of his career, you know, as an 18-year-old kid, like he wanted to be like Mike, right? And he did as close of a job as anyone has ever done. That's something everyone always says about Kobe Bryant.
One thing I'll say about Kobe too is kind of a what if too of his career.
The CP3 trade?
Well, not the CP3 trade.
That's a what if right there.
But just kind of later in his career is like if he was a little bit more of like a guy who would take those pay cuts, how we saw Dirk and Duncan do, or even going to football Tom Brady do, and being more flexible to try to bring in better players. Do they, after that 2010 run, do they have another playoff run in them? Because after that 2010 season, 2011 they weren't much of a threat.
2012 and Steve Nash in 2012.
Well, but that, I mean.
Right,
I'm not going to explain to you why that didn't work. But.
Right, that fell apart.
Yeah, I mean, but Nash was over the hill.
I'm saying they could have.
It didn't work.
They probably could have figured it out. Dwight obviously wasn't the right guy to be playing with Kobe, and Nash was old. But that's very right, Alex. Like maybe have things gone differently with that 2012 team, they could have won another one.
Yeah.
So then lastly, this is our 10th
Number
pick.
10.
We actually do disagree here with our 10 and 11.
Yeah.
The person that I have 10, Alex has 11, and we flip-flopped with our guys. So I have Hakeem Olajuwon 10, and just
blasphemy.
Just to spoil it,
blasphemy.
Alex.
No, don't even say who I have. They already know who I have. You just give me the argument for Hakeem.
What? What do you mean they already know? Go ahead. Who do you have?
It's Will. It's Will. It's not. It has to. If Will is in your top 10, a lot of people, and I could even make the case, but I won't because I don't believe it's true. People could argue that he's even top 5, man.
Oh my
god! Really
gosh.
Look at what he did.
But there's a reason you don't have him top 5. So why don't you go ahead?
Well, I'm not gonna make the case why he's not top 5.
How can people argue that he's top 5?
He's
not better than any of those guys that we just talked about.
Well, I think it comes down to era, and that's why people won't put him higher. Some people won't put him higher, and that's why I don't put him higher either. But
he scored 100 points.
Wilt or Hakeem, it has to be Wilt. And when you look at that, like, all right, so the beginning of his career, he played during that Celtics dynasty. Do you know the only season that between 1957 and 1969 that Celtics team did not make the finals? The only season was in 1967 when Wilt took the Sixers to the finals.
Okay.
So you look at that dynasty that we just raved about when we were talking about Russell, and Wilt was the guy who put a stop to it. Well, he didn't put a stop to it, but he was the only guy who could get past him.
Right.
Then you look, all right, so we have our top 4 guys. We have LeBron, we have Michael, we have Kareem, we have Russell, in whatever order we have them. They each won, so LeBron won 4 MVPs, Jordan won 5, Kareem won 6, Russell won 5. Who's the only guy who other than those 4, who won 4 MVPs? And it's Wilt Chamberlain. I mean...
Well, again, that is an era thing. So, yeah, 4 MVPs, but... Look at the guy he was competing with, 11 rings. So you're trying to argue that he's top 5. To me, Russell dominated so much that he just can't be there because Russell had 11 rings during the time that he was playing. And again, Russell did have the better team. And Russell also had 5 MVPs, so more than him. So, there was a lack of talent. So the same way that we don't rank Russell's 11 rings as high, to me, using that, he had 4 MVPs argument, like, it is watered down. It's
not watered down because Russell is the other guy who is that great.
Right, but there was only one other guy he had to compete with. Right? All these other dudes.
If you really want to break it down and go look at
that's what I'm saying.
Who was in the league at that time? There's other guys.
Between the two of them, they won 9 MVPs. Like there was really no one else that was on that MVP caliber. Like even Jerry West.
But I think that
Jerry West didn't win.
That means something. The fact that Wilt was the guy who's the only other guy in the conversation with Russell, who was like undisputed the greatest player for that period of time, for that era.
Because
it was Russell.
Because he won.
Wilt is right there, and just it's more about, I guess, it's not about winning as much, and because he did win 2 championships. He does have one, or he really should have 2 Finals MVPs. They didn't have Finals MVPs until 1969, but he won in 1967, so he should have 2 Finals MVPs. So. Winning, he did win, but then if you just look, at stats. 7 scoring champs, 11 times he had the most rebounds in the season, and which
those are seasons he played that he overlapped with Russell, Russell got every rebound too.
And he was also Russell was also doing the same thing with those numbers. He was averaging 27 rebounds a game as well.
Obviously not. I mean,
obviously not. Bill Russell was averaging that many rebounds.
Yeah, but he didn't have as many rebound titles. Is what I'm saying.
Okay, so yeah, one or two rebounds more than Russell.
Just looking on
Russell had 11 more rings.
On an individual level, I mean, this isn't supposed to be Russell Wilt argument. I guess so. Then I just don't see how you can have a guy in Hakeem who, I mean, he has 2 titles also, but Wilt also went to 6 finals in total.
Right.
And he just means more overall. If we talked about the story of basketball earlier, if you're talking about the story of basketball and who had the league make rules for them and change rules for them, it's Wilt. Wilt, you could put Wilt on the Rushmore in my opinion. Or if just to me, you talk about 10, a nice round number. Wilt has to be in that list, and I don't really see how you can put Hakeem over.
Yeah, I mean,
tell me why Hakeem.
I think there's a similar sentiment about Hakeem. Like, top 10, having Hakeem not in there, it seems unreal. And when you think about all the greatest centers of all time, like, it's stacked. Like, it's easily probably, I would say, the most stacked position, just by looking at our top 10. So many guys we talked about are big men. And I think Olajuwon, to me, like, again, I think it's close and it's tough because of era. Wilt had 4 MVPs, and Olajuwon had Olajuwon had 1 MVP.
Yeah.
So, but again, like I said, I think it is watered down.
I mean,
I think
that's
it's close. But what I'll say is that think about the era that he was playing in. Everyone who watched the Last Dance documentary was looking at the 90s, and everyone, which me and Alex and I have mentioned that we think it's probably a little overglorified by that generation, but they talk about Drexler and Barkley and Magic and all these guys that that MJ went against in his finals and in the playoffs. But really, if you look at it, who was undisputedly the second best guy right after MJ, right? Which is tough to even measure up. It was easy Hakeem, and I know that he won those 2 rings when he back-to-back finals MVPs. He won both of those
when MJ wasn't even
when
in the
MJ
league.
was gone.
So,
but
really mean?
Alex, who would have been the best team that they probably went against of all the teams that MJ and their Bulls went against? It would have been that team because they had no answer at center. Bill Cartwright or who's
that's honestly a whole other podcast that we could have. But
I'm just saying to me, listen, I'm okay with you having Wilt. That's cool with me. But to me, Hakeem, the all-time leader in blocks, right? A lot of people would just guess it would be like Dikembe Mutombo or someone else. And again, I'm not gonna be totally biased here. Wilt, they did not measure blocks, so maybe Wilt would be there.
Exactly.
But also,
probably would, honestly.
We're talking about talent, I think it's just for story too. I'm just more of a personal fan, of Hakeem, who had never played basketball until age I think 15 or 16. Yeah. Coming to America, played at I think University of Houston, and ended up going to the Rockets, and they did go to that first one when it was him and the Twin Towers, him and Ralph Sampson. They lost to the '86 Celtics, which a lot of people would argue were the greatest team of all time. And again, I just the story to me is Hakeem's more likable, more team-oriented, winning. And when we think about Wilt is all just numbers and he put up 100 points and he averaged 50 points and he had he averaged 30 rebounds and to me all these numbers that's just about how the fact that the talent pool was a bunch of short, unathletic guys,
bro.
And then Wilt comes in and just dominates. And
I know
it's more. That's
honestly,
a reason why he's hired.
It might be just,
and they changed the rules because of him. I get all that, but to me, if we're just thinking better basketball player, and to me, just I am measuring the talent pool here. I think it's very close, but I give Hakeem the edge.
But you keep talking about the era and the era argument. First of all, we already have Bill Russell in our top 3 or 4. So the era thing to me is at some point you obviously
But again, he won 11 rings.
Yes. But there's a reason he didn't, because the guy who we think is the 3rd or 4th best player of all time.
And if Wilt had done it, I'd have Wilt that high.
So the argument that Wilt, you don't have Wilt as high as Hakeem because he played in a quote unquote easier era, kind of falls flat because it's. Yeah, if you're saying, well, okay, if we took Hakeem and dropped him in the 50s, 60s, 70s, does he do what Wilt does? Maybe he does, but that's not the argument.
I didn't say
Wilt
that. Wilt
is one of the players that sets the foundation for a guy like Hakeem to even
be that great in the league. You know, Will, like I said, I mean, if you want to do a Rushmore with guys in the way they paved the way for the other players, Wilt's up there. And you said, oh, he has an easy era, all this stuff. He did things in that era. Yeah, it might have been easier, but he did things that literally no one will ever come close to. But so obviously to me, like, yeah, the league was easier, but he flat out dominated. It's not like the league was easier and he was like just as good as Hakeem was in his era. Will like obliterated everyone as far on an individual level and to some extent on winning in team
right
level.
But again, it's like I'm gonna use your own argument against you, like, oh, will we ever see someone like this before, or have we ever seen someone like this, and will we ever again? Wilt, we did see again a few more times, you know. Shaq,
we saw one. Maybe Shaq is the only guy you can say was.
But you can
close.
see like the numbers that Shaq put up is like Wilt wouldn't even done that.
Well, then here's what I would say. That
you're right. He like did all these numbers that no one will ever come close to. Like, okay, so now we gotta talk about Oscar Robertson and like. You know, and Russell Westbrook averaging a triple. Russell Westbrook averaged a triple-double in 3 seasons in a row.
Yes,
you know?
but no one has done. That's the thing. We said no one will do the triple-double. Someone did it. No one will average 50 again. No one will score 100 in a game.
Because Wilt was just an anomaly. Being 7 foot, just dunking over everyone. It was literally like I would love to watch the highlights of him just dropping in the ball into
Here's
the
one
net.
thing I'll say, John. You mentioned Shaq. You said you're gonna use my argument against me. I'm gonna use the argument that I made and that you used against me back on against you.
Go ahead.
So you said we've seen that, you know, version. We've seen that type of player again with Shaq.
Don't you disrespect.
And we have Shaq. We have Shaq at number 8. We have Shaq at number 8. So or whatever you have. Okay. Maybe had him at 9. So if we have Shaq that high and he's, you know, the only guy that we've seen be as dominant as Wilt,
and he did it against
Wilt
bigger players, better
Wilt
players.
Should probably be that high too.
Shaq did it against bigger and better players, and like that's what was crazy about Shaq doing it was like he was actually going against guys who were 7 feet.
Did he do it against Bill Russell?
Who?
Shaq.
Wilt didn't, because you want to know?
He did. They were the only team.
We can pull up his numbers in those finals that he went against. Bill Russell just shut him down.
But 19.
His scoring averages went from like scoring 50 a game to like 15 a game. And you know we can fact check that.
I want you to whatever.
No, I swear I was
looking at it earlier. Whoever's listening,
go fact check that. I don't know.
But if that's true.
Like I said, Wilt, like. I'm cool. You want to have Wilt there? That's great. Yeah. I'll have Hakeem on my list. And I think, honestly, listeners, that's the beauty of these arguments is, like, everyone has a different person in a different spot, and, like, there's different arguments. And, again, we're all emotionally biased, and that's why Bill Simmons thinks that, like, the 86 Celtics is the greatest team of all time, and all that, yet we would probably argue that, like, the 2013 Miami Heat were, you know? So everyone has their own biases.
No, I think Dwayne Wade is the GOAT.
Right. And
that's the end of the discussion.
And our own criterias, too, but... You know, I'm glad we could start this. And I honestly think this is ridiculous because we've been arguing about this over this episode for the past 45 minutes. But I actually think there's more fun in the next, like, 10 spots of guys. Like, all right, well, once you start getting into, like, the D-Wade, Isaiah, Patrick Ewing, Scottie Pippen, like, those guys, I think it's, like, Steve Nash, Kevin Garnett. Like, where people rank those guys, I feel like is so... You know, all over the place.
Maybe we'll have to do another episode. But before we wrap up, John, I know you don't really want to do. I think you should just why don't you rattle off your next 5 guys, 11 through 15.
So I had Wilt 11, obviously, for all the reasons that Alex just mentioned. I had Jerry West. You know, he is the logo. He's 12. Oscar Robertson, the only guy to average a triple-double before Russell Westbrook. And then this is where my hot take comes in. This is where Alex agrees with me. I got Dirk at 14.
Yeah, that's not
So
good.
he's 14 or 15 for me, and then I have Moses Malone. So maybe we can get into that. Maybe I'll switch it up. Maybe I'll do more research.
No.
But right now, that's what I got.
Yeah, so I have my next 5. I have 11. I have Hakeem Olajuwon, which honestly, I still think that's too high. Maybe I should put Jerry West ahead of him.
Shut
anyway,
up.
So I have Hakeem at 11. Jerry West, the logo, at 12. Number 13, here's my, hot take. Excuse me. Steph Curry at number 13.
Bro, are you kidding me? I thought you were joking about that.
No, dude.
13?
That's another argument.
He hasn't even won a Finals MVP.
You put so
Get
much
out of here.
You put so much value into a trophy that Andre Iguodala has won. Is Andre Iguodala top 15?
No, and you know what? I can't wait for it. We're gonna our next episode. We'll do a Steph Curry episode where we can argue about all this stuff.
Then at number 14, I have Oscar Robertson. Number 15,
Elgin Baylor, who's the greatest player to never win a championship. Go read about him.
I'm okay with that too. Elgin's up there.
All right, so that was a nice episode. Getting nice and toasty in here. We got to put the AC up because it's pretty hot.
It's getting heated.
But yeah, so this has been a fun one. Thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoyed that. John and I got to, go Stephen A and Skip Bayless mode.
Yeah, and please reach out to us and let us know what issues you take with our top 10s and what you had differently.
Yeah, all right. See you on the flip-flop.